They will forget every kind thing you ever did for them. But they will never forget the one time you made them feel powerless. That's not cruelty. That's not manipulation. That's the oldest law of power ever written. And almost no one has the courage to admit it's true. Everyone wants to be liked. We're taught from childhood that kindness wins, that love is the answer, that if people like you, you're safe. But 500 years ago, a man named Niccolò Machiavelli looked at kings, empires, and human nature itself, and wrote something that shattered that comfortable lie completely. He said it is far safer to be feared than loved, and once you understand why, you will never look at power, relationships, or respect the same way again. Here's the brutal logic most people refuse to face. Love depends on someone else's feelings, feelings that shift with their mood, their convenience, their self-interest. The second loyalty becomes inconvenient. Love disappears overnight. Machiavelli watched it happen over and over. Kings adored one week, abandoned the next. Allies who swore loyalty, gone the moment it no longer served them. Fear doesn't work like that. Fear isn't built on how someone feels about you. It's built on consequences. And consequences don't vanish just because someone's mood changes. That's the entire secret. Not cruelty, not violence. Just the uncomfortable truth that consequences hold power in place far longer than affection ever will. So today, we're going to break this open completely. What Machiavelli really meant, and exactly where the line sits between commanding respect and becoming someone people genuinely hate. Because that line is everything. And hey, if these lessons help and motivates you like this, about human nature, dark psychology, and Machiavelli, go ahead and subscribe to Sam Knows right now, because here, we don't just talk about motivation, we decode the psychological rules that actually decide power and respect in the real world. Now let's get started. Let's take this out of theory and into your actual life, because this rule is playing out around you every single day. Whether you've noticed it or not, think of two managers. One is friendly, agreeable, never wants to upset anyone. Deadlines slip, corners get cut, because everyone knows there's no real consequence. The other manager is calm, but everyone knows that if you drop the ball, there's a conversation coming that you don't want to have. Guess which team delivers on time every time? It was never about who was nicer, it was about who commanded consequences. Or look at parenting. A parent who threatens punishment but never follows through, raises children who stop listening entirely. They've learned the words mean nothing. But a parent who rarely raises their voice, yet always follows through, raises children who listen the first time, even as adults. The child isn't afraid of anger. They respect the certainty of consequence. Even in relationships, this plays out in ways people don't like to admit. The partner who apologizes for everything, who bends over backward to avoid any conflict, is often the one who ends up least respected, sometimes even taken for granted. The partner who has clear boundaries, who won't tolerate being disrespected, tends to be the one people go out of their way not to upset. Now here's the deeper psychology behind all of this. Human beings are wired to test for weakness. It's not always conscious. It's not always cruel. It's just instinct. The same instinct that exists in every social animal on Earth. When someone senses there's no real cost to pushing your limits, they push. Not because they're evil, because nothing is stopping them. But the moment someone senses genuine consequence, that same instinct shifts completely into caution and respect. This is what Machiavelli understood centuries before modern psychology gave it a name. Fear, in its healthiest form, isn't about intimidation. It's about certainty. People don't fear the loudest person in the room. They fear the one whose word always means exactly what it says. Now we need to talk about the line most people cross without even realizing it, because this is where this entire philosophy either makes you powerful or makes you the villain of your own story. Machiavelli himself warned about this, and it's the part almost every summary of his work conveniently leaves out. He didn't say, be cruel. He said, above everything else, avoid being hated, because fear and hate might look similar from the outside, but they are built from completely different materials, and only one of them lasts. Here's the distinction. Fear, done right, comes from consistency and consequence. People respect you because your word is reliable, because you don't tolerate disrespect, because you protect what's yours. That kind of fear coexists with respect, sometimes even with love. Hate is different. Hate comes from humiliation. It comes from cruelty without reason, from taking more than what's fair, from making someone feel small for the sake of feeling powerful yourself. And hate, unlike fear, doesn't stay quiet. Hate waits, hate plots, hate eventually finds a way to destroy the very thing you built. So here is the honest test. Are people cautious around you because they respect your standards, your consistency, your boundaries? That's healthy fear, and it builds loyalty over time. Or are people cautious around you because you've humiliated them, taken advantage of them, or made them feel worthless? That's hate wearing fear's mask, and it always, eventually, collapses. This is the line Machiavelli actually drew, the one modern summaries strip away, because it's less dramatic than make them fear you. Real power was never about being feared for cruelty. It was about being respected so deeply and so consistently that people never wanted to test what happens if they cross you. Here's a brutal truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. If you've spent years being the person who apologizes first, who smooths things over, who avoids conflict at any cost, you already know exactly how this feels. You know what it's like to be talked over in meetings. To be the one whose boundaries get tested again and again, because everyone's learned there's no real cost to crossing them, and somewhere underneath the exhaustion, there's a quiet resentment, not just at other people, but at yourself, for constantly shrinking to keep the peace. That feeling isn't weakness, it's information. It's your own instinct telling you that something needs to change, that being endlessly agreeable was never actually protecting you, it was just making you an easier target. So let's talk about how you actually apply this without becoming someone people despise. It comes down to 3 shifts. First, let your word carry weight. If you say there's a consequence, follow through every single time. Empty threats destroy respect faster than almost anything else. People don't fear inconsistency, they exploit it. Second, stop over-explaining your boundaries. The moment you find yourself justifying a boundary for the 3rd time, you've already weakened it. State it once, calmly, and let your actions do the rest. Third, protect your value without punishing people for testing it. There's a difference between calmly holding a line and humiliating someone for crossing it. One builds respect that lasts. The other builds enemies who wait for their moment. This isn't about becoming cold or manipulative or someone people can't approach. It's about finally understanding that being endlessly nice was never the same thing as being good, and being firm was never the same thing as being cruel. The people who respect you the most in your life are rarely the ones you bent over backward for. They're the ones who learned early on that your word means something and that testing you comes with a real cost. Here's the twist nobody expects when they start applying this. Once you stop being endlessly agreeable, once your word actually carries weight, something unexpected happens. The people who only respected you out of pity or convenience or because they could take advantage of you, they start to disappear. And at first that feels like loss. It isn't. It's the fastest, clearest filter you will ever get for who genuinely values you versus who simply valued how easy you were to control. Because here's what Machiavelli understood that most people never fully grasp. The people who truly love you were never drawn to your weakness in the first place. They don't leave when you stop apologizing for existing. They don't leave when you finally hold a boundary. If anything, they respect you more because now there's something solid to actually respect. The only people who leave are the ones who needed you soft to get what they wanted from you. And losing them was never really a loss at all. So here's where all of this actually lands. You don't need to become cruel to be powerful. You don't need to make people afraid of your anger to be respected. Love without any consequence behind it fades the moment it becomes inconvenient. But respect, built on consistency, boundaries, and quiet strength, that stays. That's the real lesson hidden inside Machiavelli's most controversial rule, and it has nothing to do with becoming someone people fear out of cruelty. It has everything to do with becoming someone people can no longer afford to disrespect. If this video gave you a new way to see power, respect, and boundaries, make sure to like it and subscribe, because next time we're uncovering another one of Machiavelli's darkest and most misunderstood rules, one that could completely change how you move through every relationship in your life.